the announcement for the Celine, could you make who is the Al de Genova?
Hi everyone, so long time no see first of all, and I'd like to introduce our speaker Al de Genova, and Al was elected as a 5-term Vancouver Park Board Commissioner from 1993 to 2008, and he is currently in the real estate industry. And mainly Al is the president of the Honour House as well as the upcoming Honour Ranch. And Honour House is initially a home away from home service for our heroes, the first responders and the Canadian Forces. And they provide a home for them while they're seeking medical services in the Vancouver area. And they also provide a home for their families as well. And then the upcoming Honour Ranch is initially a facility to treat PTSD once again in the first responders and our Canadian Forces. And I'm sure Al will talk about this much better than I can, so I'd like to welcome Al today.
Before I start, here's my $12 because what I'm going to put you through in a few moments. And now I just like thank you very much because Celine did such a great job. That's about it.
In the military?
No, I'll give you a little quick overview of that part. I kind of use the word, I don't want to use the wannabe, but I'm honored to be an honorary colonel on the Canadian Forces. Mine's an appointment. So as I tell people, I wasn't even a Cub Scout or a cadet. So the day I received a call through the Prime Minister to say that they wanted to make me an honorary colonel, I didn't even know what it meant. I didn't even know what a colonel was and how it all worked, except thinking of Kentucky Fried Chicken. That being said, it was a great honor going back almost just over 4 years ago. And I was brought in as an honorary lieutenant colonel, and then I moved up to a full colonel last year as I learned my way through. So for an old fellow, yeah, I did all my gun training. I've been keep up with my troops. I'm with 15th Field, we're artillery, so we're the big guns. But all our basic C7, C9 small weaponry, I had a chance to look through. I'm out in the field in Yakima, Fort Lewis, back to Shiloh, and through the U.S., and I'll talk about that a little bit later, is how we work with our allies and how we work very closely together and what that means. But my role is to bring awareness to what our men and women do in uniform. A lot of people think we just fix our trucks and make sandwiches for everybody, and we're out sort of on the lines, not the front lines. And after you see this, and I'll talk a little bit about what our men and women actually do, but my role across this country as I travel is to bring awareness of what we do, our men and women, and I will repeat it a few times. The question kind of came up, is that probably in North America and parts of the world, our men and women are probably some of the very best fighters in the front lines beside our allies, and they recognize that. Now our equipment is pretty dismal, but our training is probably one of the best in the world. And that being said, the U.S. has the very finest equipment, and that's why we train so well with them, because they know everything from frontline fighting in Afghanistan, Bosnia, Korea, around the world. And we got 3,000 troops out right now on the peacekeeping side that we stand beside our allies and bring awareness. But on the other side of the spectrum, they respect when Canada shows up. They're on the front lines. We're full-on fighters, and they know what we've seen. They've seen it through other theaters that we've been in. And when you calculate our loss of 158 men and women over the last number of years, it sounds perhaps like a low number, but when you work it out in calculation of what we have, it's fairly high. Post-traumatic stress is huge from all our front lines. Because we're large in the reserve side, along with our regular force, reg force, by day, doctor, dentist, plumber, electrician, physiotherapist, you name it, and then by night, weekend, and ready to deploy, we're some of the top high-trained men and women in uniform around the world, and hence why we work so closely with our allies around the world, and hence we deploy when we're ready to go on a moment's notice. Within 48 hours, we're out and fully ready to go. We get the call, we're gone, and we leave their jobs. And what is known as through the Canadian CFLC, Canadian Forces Liaison Council. It's another group that works with our employees to say, listen, this man or woman is being deployed, or we need them for readiness for training, and those employers allow them to leave. They're still paid, and everything is part of serving our country. So it's a bit unique, different in the U.S. So our men and women join because they want to, and they're willing to really give. In in other parts of the world, they get in because they can't get a job, or it's paid, well paying. So our men and women join because they want to and they're ready to go, but it's highly, if not highly trained, better trained than most forces around the world, and that's where we gain that respect. And it's been a wonderful, last 20 years, and you can see as we're moving forward, we will never want to get into the biggest of arms. Our tanks and guns are bigger than your guns, because we're in the peacekeeping world. We don't want to be known for our weapons are bigger than yours, we have more, but we're also as well trained at which better allies. We have some of our toys, but we don't want a lot, because they know that we can share by side. We use the same weaponry, US and Canada. But that being said, they have a lot more and newer, and we are ready to work with them, so they know that they've got another 100,000 at a moment's notice to go. So as much as we grow, we don't want to be too big, because it shows a message that was brought up a wee bit, that we're really peacekeepers. Canadians are likable and we care, but we won't put up with everything, and so we flex as much as we need to. But in that case, it's we equally, in some ways, sir, your message was very good. But when we go there, we can say we're nothing, we're nobody, we don't have a lot, but we are, and they respect that. And it's about how you feel, and we feel very proud for what we do. And beside our allies, they encompass us, bring us in, and so you are somebody. We all are. We work together. So your message was great, but when you go, you got to hold your head high, as our soldiers do. And the invisible injury, we have lost 158, but I can't tell you the thousands and thousands of the 30,000 men and women that we shipped over to Afghanistan during our exercise there, never mind Bosnia and the other parts of the world. The amount that come back and see the horrific stuff that they're involved with, it's life-changing. I can tell you the stories beside my men and women who've served that came back. They'll never be the same, and that's why what I'm doing here is a part of that, to look after them and or their families, and that's my role. And so I'm honored to be an honorary for all our men and women. I'm in the artillery with 15 Field. Didn't even know what that meant 4 years ago. But now I've been to every base and learned from every regiment, and how we work from air, ground, and sea. And for the equipment that we have, we work the best we can, but with our allies, we go full on, and they're just amazed how quick we adapt, how we work with them, and it's powerful. And the people around the world recognize that when we come to the table. So, sorry about that part, but that's a long-winded kind of how proud I feel when I've learned what we really do and how I have to cast that message. Are we ready, Ray?
Yes, I was ready for this.
No, that's okay. Give me a chance to speak. Got a note there.
My dad is a Mountie, and I know I just kind of always probably was going to follow in his footsteps anyway, so I said, okay, I'll become a Mountie.
So you knew I wanted to be a paramedic when I was 8 years old.
From a young age, I used to run around the farm in Saskatchewan with a sawed-off hockey stick. It's something I wanted to do ever since I was a little kid. Started out as an air cadet actually over in Victoria, and I was one of those little kids that never got out of it. Not a big fan of camping, so the Navy was the life for me.
It doesn't really matter whether you're fire, police, paramedic, border guard, we are all from a common family.
When we got hired as paramedics, we never had a list of different things. These are the different things that you're going to see. I have a 2-year-old daughter, and traumatic injuries of children didn't really used to bug me, but now when I do a call with a pediatric patient, it's tough.
In 2012, my twin brother died in Surrey. The detachment commander in Burnaby said, I know all their families coming into town. Do you have a place for them to stay? I said, well, no, I guess they'll stay in a hotel.
By coincidence, one night the TV was on, a documentary came up called Peace Warrior with Captain Trevor Green. Watching that documentary and seeing the rehab that he had to go through with his wife Debbie, and at that time his little girl Grace, to think that our Canadian Forces men and women, when they get injured, don't seem to really have a place to stay. It's a home away from home for Canadian Forces, first responders, and their families while they're getting treatment at VGH, GF Strong, Royal Columbian.
As a spouse of an emergency service member, you really see those families whose lives have changed in a split second. We've tried our very best to make sure that it has the comforts that these families would experience at home. There's privacy in having your own suite, but then with the communal living and eating areas, we find that it really helps families to connect.
people show up at the house, a lot of worries, and they come into the house, and just for a minute you can get to sometimes see that they kind of forget why they're here. They're in awe of the house.
Everybody has stressors in their life, but when you add on top of that some of the stressors for first responders, whether it's military, police, paramedics, whoever it is, there's extra stress.
The unfortunate thing is that that has a cumulative effect over the years. It's almost like wearing a backpack, and every time you go out on a call, you put another item in that pack until that pack gets too heavy.
And we're not really good for asking for help, so a lot of paramedics struggle with even saying, hey, I need help, or, you know, I'm in a time of need. We never see ourselves as the one that's going to be the patient.
With the uniform comes a lot of pride, thinking that I can deal with situations or problems on my own and not wanting to seek help.
Seeing that commitment from these young men and women who give each and every day just drives me to see that they get the tools, they get the support that they need.
You know, the more I think about it, it was a chance for the whole family to be together for that whole week or 2 week period they were here, and mourn together and kind of just be as a family.
Anything that reduces the level of stress for the soldier or the soldier's family is greatly appreciated.
What would you say to somebody who came up to you and said, how do I get back to first responders? How do I get back to the military? My God, how did people get back?
Yeah, a lot of people actually ask, you know, I wish I could do something for you, or I wish we could, you know, can I get you a coffee or something, but we never have time for that coffee.
Sometimes people don't even know who the first responders were that helped them in that time of need.
You know, from what I've been through, I can tell that I've changed a little bit.
It's very much appreciated, certainly for some of my personnel that have had the ability to utilize Honour House.
The sponsors, the volunteers, the people who put this together, we can't thank them enough for the tremendous service they have provided for our men and women in uniform.
Organizations like Honour House give me a sense of comfort that the Canadian population does care.
We're a charitable and nonprofit society, and we really rely on donations. We rely on fundraising to keep this house open and free.
We come in very quick and we're gone very quick. So I think Honour House is really a way that the community can adopt their first responders and say thank you, and we appreciate what you do, and we're here for you when you need help.
Hopefully for some of you, I'm not sure, in the past you may have saw that video, and for others they haven't, it gives you a quick overview of what our Canadian Forces men and women go through, and more importantly our first responders, because many of our reservists are first responders, especially in the RCMP side. So they not only serve by day, but they're serving by night, because the regimental side works similar, but at the same time it's just about giving constantly, and for that I feel that I owe them, and as a community we do, because they give unconditionally. And ambulance paramedics, there's over 4,500 of them. We have one of the board members that sit on my board, Bob Parkinson, is the health and wellness director for ambulance paramedics for over 4,500 throughout the province, and many of them struggle with post-traumatic stress because of, you know, the amount of scenes that they see on highways and stuff, and the accidents are pretty horrific, and over time that just wears on them and their families, and hence the suicide rate this last year especially has been so very high in the ambulance side. So when I work my way through the slides here, I just want to start off by saying thanks, Matt, for having me come out today. I really appreciate this, because I can never cast enough message, because you are really our silent salespeople, to cast that message. So let, when you see a paramedic on the street and they're just gathering stuff, or a firefighter, or even a police officer. But so thanks, Matt, for inviting me out today. And if we can click to the first slide, and we'll just jump into the next slide, please, because you caught the video here. So one more, Ray, if you can click over to slide 2. There we go. In Honour House, as you saw, we have 11 bedrooms. Home was built in 1930s, as you saw earlier in the video. It cost us just under $6 million to build. I raised the money privately. I didn't want to rely on government, so that way I didn't have to go cup in hand down the road. So we have a home away from home to help them and their families in perpetuity, as opposed to letting members know that they're serious health or whatever when they come to the Lower Mainland from all over the province, or in some cases out of country, so they don't ever feel like, if they stay anywhere from a day to 110 days, they're there as long as they want at no cost. And so we had to make sure that that home met their needs. And then now I'm building honor houses in Ottawa and Halifax now that I got Honor Ranch, which I'll talk a bit about, so we can help coast to coast to coast. As of the beginning of last month, we've been open 10 years. We just hit our 11,000th night stay to help men and women in uniform. The house is heavily occupied. We only have one paid staff. The other ones run between 75 and 81 volunteers to keep that house humming. So out of every dollar we raise, 99.5 cents goes right back in to look after our men and women in uniform. And it's been wonderful from that aspect. In this picture here, you'll see Captain Trevor Green, I think it is. Yes, and Trevor was really an inspiration for me. I don't know if many of you know about Captain Trevor Green. He was in Afghanistan, and he was through Bloomberg, and he was a reporter, and he was with the Sea Force and worked his way up to captain in relatively a short time. And with that being said, he was deployed to Afghanistan, big guy, about 6'3". He had a little girl at that time, Grace, and his wife, Deb. And so you can flip maybe to the next slide, right? Oh no, this is the right one, sorry. Here he is in an Afghan village. You'll see a C7 gun on his helmet. Out of respect, you take your helmet off. And with the elders there, he was talking. And it was just shortly after he was getting ready for the cup of tea where the young boy was serving. An insurgent came around behind him and with full force planted a homemade axe into his head and literally took his head and split it in half, right down. And they had to load him in a Black Hawk helicopter. The full firefight went on from there with his mates and took out most of the village insurgents at that time, which was full on. They loaded Trev onto a Black Hawk, got him into Kandahar, from Kandahar into Germany, and the doctors worked on him as best as they can, because when you saw the pictures when he got into Kandahar, they had to just tape it and put his head together. It was literally that bad, right down the middle of the brain. It didn't know how it would function. And hence where he didn't have spinal cord injury, he had a neurological injury, which had him fully disabled, virtually as a high quad, as we call it. And so they worked on it. His wife Debbie flew from Alberta back to Germany to be by his side. Her mom looked after little Grace, and they basically said, listen, he will be a vegetable if he doesn't die, and you should just basically move on now. So she stayed with him, believed in him, and so they finally stabilized him, flew him into Pinoco, into Edmonton, the brain injury clinic there, kept him there for many months, and then into Vancouver to VGH, the brain injury clinic there, and they managed to stabilize him really well, swelling the brain, all the other stuff that could go on. And because Trevor, as they were working through his rehab, back in the days, some of you may know what the PMQs are. They were the married quarters in the days out of the base in Jericho. Well, I can tell you, when Trevor got stabilized after year one, getting him through a long journey, when you look at the equipment he was hooked up to, they weren't designed to age, not age in place, but fully accessible. And it was then, my wife, we were watching this documentary, Peace Warrior. It's powerful if you ever Google it. It won international documentary awards. And the person who did the documentary actually lives in North Vancouver. And so she's well acclaimed on that. But I have to say that was Trev, we were watching one night, my wife said, Al, you were involved in helping open Ronald McDonald House, the first one in King Edward and Angus. You know, you should help our men and women in uniform. They're always helping us. And you should build a house to help them and actually call it in honor of our men and women who serve, and hence that's how the name came about. And so I formed a charter, like in any club, a group of people, and I just went to each one and says, your country needs you. And they kind of said, okay, Al, where are we going with this? And so we built up a good little group, and then I had to start looking for the land, and Trevor was my inspiration. Fast forwarding 2 years, found the location after the third attempt, and we found that, wrote a business plan, and and raised some dollars quickly, brought in the Vancouver Regional Construction Association. Off we went, and then the home opened 2 years later for what you saw. It was all the inspiration of Trevor. Next slide, please, sir. Here's Trevor, and since then, there's a little boy, Grace, which is growing up now, and little Grace, who's big Grace now, and then Dad, whose mobility is still in a wheelchair, very little, still not much mobility, but a little bit of hand use. He won't walk, he can move his legs a wee bit, but he will never walk, but he's still going full on therapy, and he's determined, and who knows? It's just very possible knowing Trevor. Next slide, please, sir. Since some of you know about Honour House and you got a bit of an overview in the film, what I'd like to talk today about, which you may not know about, is Honour Ranch. As my inspiration for Honour House, and now with Ottawa and Halifax, that I just got the ranch open on October the 5th. It's in Ashcroft, so just outside of Kamloops. We're on 120 acres of land, and we have 10 beautiful cottages and the main lodge. Fellow put in $3.6 million to build it. It's a long story, but a good client of mine, the Bentall family, and Seacliff and Philip George, who owned Dominion Construction, heard about this. He said, and he knows I've gone to him enough saying his country needs him, so he's always supported us in some way. So this ranch was in foreclosure in Kamloops in late December the 28th. It was going to Kamloops for basically silent bid, and there was a number of people there, and it was going obviously to the highest bidder, no reserve. And so Ian was going up quarter, and he said, why don't you come along? I went up there with him. It was the night before we went in on the 27th, and then that following day we were in court, and he said, what should I bid? And I said, well, I don't know, sir. And he said, well, let's try. He says, you know, there's the first bid in always, but let's put a bid in, and if we don't get it, we'll go over the guy who got an offer more until he finally changed. I said, well, and I didn't know where he was going, because he wanted to buy this for his family, and he was showing me some pictures at a restaurant about this wonderful ranch. I'm just hurrying up here, and I looked at it, I said, oh my God, this is absolutely perfect. I said, your country needs you. He takes it and turns around. What do you mean by that? I said, we're looking for a ranch because now I need a place to actually treat our men and women who really need. Honour House gives that treatment throughout the greater Vancouver area at various agencies, as it said in the video, but the ranch will actually give that treatment. That being said, so up we went, and he said, so what is the number that he puts his offer in the envelope? It was all prepared, and I said, let's do 668,000, 668 in Chinese, it's moving forward, and luck. And since I worked in Chinatown for 25 years, and my Chinese name is Zhang Nehua, it's a big part of me for feng shui and how that works, so 668. So in went 5 bids, and obviously it's an all-cash deal. He did no due diligence, but he was fine with that. And there was some bunch of what we call hair on the deal that needed some other stuff because everything was built without permit, etc. All the usual stuff, even though a lot of money was spent, they built it and they were really just rogue operators. So they announced that they said, Mr. Porter, this ranch is yours. So I said, God, I'm really happy. I hope we can come up, visit you, hang out with your family. He said, yeah, that would be good. We'll work something out. And then about mid-January, we went back. He said, now I've got to talk to you about some other stuff in Penticton, etc. I do a lot of work with them. Good people to work with. And so we went to the same little restaurant. I guess he received the keys by then. He handed me the keys. He says, make it happen. And that's how that dream started. It was very kind of him. And it's absolutely truly magical. Anytime if you or your family is ever passing through the Ashcroft to Kamloops, or however you're heading to Williams Lake, or just family driving, you're welcome to go up to the ranch, stay at the ranch. We'll always have an extra little cottage. It keeps the family of 4 quite nice. And it's just magical. We're right next door to the Sundance Ranch. For some that might know, it's a dude ranch. It has 100 horses, been around over 60 years for families from 3 to 93, literally, that ride up there. It's spectacular. It's pretty good value. People from all around the world have been going there, and we're right next door, so they partnered with us to do programs, riding. It's magical, especially in the earlier winter months. Now we just had 5 inches of snow, and you're cutting your Christmas tree and hauling it back. Pretty magical. You can, ski there, toboggan down our hills because we're in a gentle valley. It's special. So if you ever think you need to get up, get away for a wee bit, then you are welcome to come up. And especially with our first responders or Honour House, it's their home away from home. In Honour Ranch, we will be running our programs. We offer the facilities. It's above our pay grade. We don't pretend. that we know how to run programs, along with our clinologists, psychologists, psychiatrists, through WorkSafe BC, Orion. There's a number of programs, they'll run it. But the thing is, they're here at no cost. We will assist whatever our men and women who need it. We won't turn anybody away because the invisible injury is absolutely huge, and hence our Canadian forces. The amount of body parts our men and women lost in the last year is humongous. Now, the lives we lost was 158. We left a lot of family, but the thousands and thousands that, besides the multiple thousands of the invisible injury, the multiple thousands that lost body parts are gigantic, and we don't hear that every day. So they think, I guess we just fix the trucks when we go over, and our guys are pretty peaceful, but we're still full frontline fighting. If we're asked to fight with our allies, and we believe through our government that we should be, then we will, and we step up. Our guys don't hold back. And that's when countries recognize, it's like, whoa, in the UK, and you can see most of them throughout, that they're surprised how well we are from and as you may have heard, our sniper capabilities are one of the best in the world. Our artillery, as far as gunfighters, are one of the best. So, you know, on the infantry side, Sea Force, and from everywhere we fought in World War I, II, and throughout. So, so we're pretty proud of that. As I said a bit earlier, our equipment isn't the best, but our men and women are, and they're not afraid to share their equipment because of how we step up and what we offer. So I'm proud to say. Next slide, sir. I'll click through here kind of quickly now. So here was the ranch. I just wanted you to see a few pictures. There was the cottages that you kind of see, and some of the furnishing. Next slide, please. There's the overall ranch with the cottages there, and then the main lodge. My goal is next year I'll have to build 10 more. The demand is so gigantic from the launch that people stepped up. We had over 300 people attend, and the binder was this thick already saying, please, I can barely hang on. This ranch is my last chance. We've lost a few. Master Corporal Joe Alina on the Sea Force on Burrard and First, where the lab is out front. His wife's an RCMP officer. She was there with her mother-in-law. And last year, Joe took his life last July. 3 tours in Afghanistan. They tried hard to keep him. He was a very good friend of Honour House, and he just couldn't hang on. And if I was opened a year ago, and I tried hard to do this with somewhere else, and I just couldn't because of water levels and permitting and stuff, I couldn't. So I found this location thanks to Ian. So I lost Joe Alina, and as Captain Trevor Green was my mentor to drive for the house, Joe Alina was the mentor for me to drive to build Honour Ranch, which we will now save hundreds and hundreds of lives and people right in this community. Your men and women, when you see a police officer zipping by at full on, one of those, actually 2 of them, are seriously struggling right now, and who knows if they pull the pin on themselves because they're struggling that bad. And their employer, believe it or not, don't recognize it that well, and you think, why would that person be serving? Because they just don't know how to they're there to look after you, and they don't look after themselves until one day they take their lives. And we lost a 32-year-old young gal paramedic just a couple of weeks ago to that because she just couldn't handle it any longer. She came out of the Okanagan, and the head-on collisions when you lose 2 children and a mom and dad, where the cars completely split apart and the body parts are all over the highway, and they're picking those pieces up, especially children, you don't recover from that. And that's not only the first time it's had to do that. So it's wearing on them. Next slide, sir. Here's some of our volunteers. We're, of course, driven 100% by volunteers. So Rotarians, thank you very much. If you feel ambitious, cleaning, organizing, coming out a few rails, whatever, you can stay at the cottages, hang out for a weekend, and experience the wild, wild west. There are some of our volunteers and some of our reservists and full rank force there, helping for a weekend, doing some work before opening. Next slide, sir. There is Joe Alina on his last few days of tour in Afghanistan. And then about a year after, he took his life, and it was very sad. His wife, who's an RCMP officer in Surrey, was devastated. So she's needing some help now because she was also in the Canadian Forces before she became an RCMP officer. Next slide, sir. Here's one of our soldiers who is struggling heavily with post-traumatic stress. I won't get the name and everything. And I'm working with them right now and helping through with them and some of the stories that he had to go into and what they had to deal with. It was pretty horrific game with a family in a village that the whole family was taken out by insurgents. Well, him along with my RSM and another fellow in BSM had to witness through binoculars. We were far enough from our C7, but close enough that you could see, and I don't want to be horrific, but what they did to those 2 kids and the mom and dad was pretty bad, and hence this person struggling. One more slide, please. There's a bit more of the ranch, and then we're down to questions. If there's anything else, that's my presentation. Sorry to keep us along. Thank you.
So you obviously do need any financial support, right?
Yeah, I'm never here to ask for help because I'm here to help your men and women, ma'am, in your community who give so much of us. It always helps us, of course, but I don't want to be here looking, like I said, cup in hand, because we're driven by volunteers, but we have operating costs, which is low, but it's our capital, like you see the ranch now, and so we just do our best on that avenue, and I door knock a bit. That's how we do it, yes.
Well, Al, I want to thank you. It's humbling. Anybody else feel like, wow, the energy that you put in, your commitment, and talk about, we can learn from you about how you make things happen. You are absolutely amazing, and you also have a beautiful daughter. I saw in that.
Melissa, she's one of our counselor in the Vancouver City. Yeah, she's our counselor. And also how that close those community. Melissa's husband is a police officer.
In Vancouver,
District 2. And I wanted to share with you that the Remembrance Day ceremony at Rockridge High School in West Van, every year they pick a theme, and this year was PTSD. They talked about the invisible wounds, and they had young people acting out what happened to World War I and World War II when nobody knew that's what it was. So now, we normally have a letter to give to you as a thank you, and we will still do this. We donate, to thank you, we don't make a donation to our polio eradication program. You know, we're getting close to eradicating that. So that's in your honor, but here's a pin in the meantime.
Oh, wow, that's
That's
so
your
great.
collection.
I have those and on a board. Thank
Great.
you so
Well,
kindly.
thank you.
ma'am.
You are inspirational.
Thank you all, yes. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm sorry to keep you a little longer than usual.
This
Determined to get
is
that
a
message.
beautiful speech. Also, I want to say something about what they are doing, our first responders. Is we have also a community program for preparing the earthquake, and the military group start to we start with the one event, the operation Big Shake. Yeah, and we are waiting. We are expecting a big earthquake, and it can be happen anytime. For that reason, we well prepared. We have lots of study behind it, and also the one of the biggest concern, our first responders in our community, West Vancouver especially, they are not living in West Vancouver. They are not living because they cannot afford it. They are coming from the New West, Squamish, all around, but they are not in here. And when the earthquake happened, when we lose the 2 bridges, highly possible. How many days we are our own in here? How long? 3 days, 4 days? We are totally our own to not expect anything after the big earthquake. Those are our worries, and they all thinking about starting from that point, and the second for the supporting our first responders as well. He's after the creating the affordable houses in our community to give our police officers, firefighters, paramedics, and maybe the next step is also teachers. Because can you imagine in our community such a nice and wealthy city, but our first responders cannot afford it. It's not their fault. You know, the city is getting more and more expensive. The business people immigrating that little town from all around the world, and the people try to survive in that community. I think this is totally wrong what we are doing. We have to create instead of building the luxury houses, first we have to take care about our first responders, who is make this city nice and livable, because they are the part of this community, and the people not seeing that and they are ignoring. And they are pushing a lot to make this thing happen, creating the affordable houses for those people. And not just for those people family. Can you imagine our teachers teaching in the most high-ranking schools in West Vancouver, but their kids is not going to the West Vancouver school because they are living in New West, they are living in Burnaby. This is something honestly wrong. We should bring those people, those very valuable people to this community, and that's his idea, his project, and he's doing some studies about that.
Yeah, we're moving even as quick as on 15 Esquimalt, Wall Financial wants to do an infill building. Not only did I help him to design, to work through as the architect, right there, helping design fully accessible units, so 3-foot doors, levered handles, roll-in showers, but a commitment for 35 units immediately for first responders or teachers, so they can actually live in the community like Matt says, because they're coming from, as far as Abbotsford and Aldergrove daily, so you do a 12-hour shift, then it's overtime to 13, 14, and they got an hour and a half drive back to come in the next morning. So not if, but when we have a mother of a quake, our bridges are fractured, buildings are down, they're going to show it on the other side. We'll be over in a few days, hang in there, because they can't afford to live in the community they work. And so I'm lobbying, and they know. I'm forming now a community. It's called ATTACK, being the Army ATTACK, the Angry Taxpayers Action Community. And it's all about education, having architects, about good design, good structure. Every building should be designed to age in place, since considering we're the only community that's losing people. Our population and everything is lower than it was. As wealthy as this community is, we have hardly any money for infrastructure and for building senior centers, again, are redoing youth housing for our seniors, above our libraries, above all, and I go on and on. But I need to at least secure our teachers where they can teach here. As you may know, we've lost 21 teachers now from West Van this last almost 10 months because they can't afford to come here. Public and private. Mulgrave have reached out in behind saying, I've got somebody who will build 280 units of affordable rental, so they can actually live up to 3 bedrooms for 30% below market, so they can actually afford to live in this community. And then you get council, even their 22nd and Gordon site you may have heard of, that they want to build. They're fighting amongst each other, the 4-3 crowd that don't agree. And so now they've stopped on their own site, and then yet they talk from one side of their mouth affordability for your own community first responders, and then you need a paramedic, or you need this. It's just, it's sad. And then they talk on the buzz about affordability to help families and whatever that can live, including your first responders, and yet it's not happening. So I'm full on with ATTACK. They're going to start here in the new year. I'm hitting every person that I can to say, I'm going to be a member, I'm signing up for $1, and I just believe so I can bring people in. It's not about the big group, but I just don't think it's fair that it's just all about me when I'm in my 60s and 70s. I don't care that a little view for this and that, my values. Council has to hear that you have to work with it a bit. Height doesn't mean bad if you come in with right architecture, that you're giving a big community benefit to help our men and women in uniform, help our teachers, which are frontline serving, because it's those young leaders one day that may be in uniform and want to be a police officer that actually grew up in this community that can't actually live back in this community. It's just, oh God help it, we build a coach house in the back.
So I'll give that information, or we might support you and
Thank
sign
you,
up for
yeah,
that.
I just think, I'm not saying it's all one way or the other, but they need to be open-minded, council, and they're afraid because ADRA is putting so much pressure, and I don't mind saying, Peter Lambert has become, if you look at Horseshoe Bay, for some very low-density items, it was no, they put Peter in there, and they said, we got you elected, you do what we say. And that's what our elected officials should be doing. Sometimes you've got to make hard choices. And I said, just listen to everybody, not the minority, and then make a sensible decision. We're not telling what to do, but you need to really understand the picture. So you can tell, for my men and women, I need them here. And our veterans who give it. And at the Legion, it's almost gone now. If the current municipal government didn't help them out with their tax relaxation, they'd be gone. And now I want to take that Legion, I want to build it up, and I have all BC Housing money to do so. And then our members that are first responders and or people that served in the military can actually live above for less than 50% of rental income. And it can go as low as $375 a month. Wow. So they can actually live in the community, because not all people that are on fixed income or pensioners here can afford to live in this community. Their pride is big, or they're asset rich and cash poor, and they defer their taxes, and they barely can afford their meals. It's heavy duty in this community, and they deserve to be able to live here. And for this current council now, it's so divided, it's not fair, because you're Rotarians, you're members of this community, you can feel it suffering, and I reach out a lot. You hear from our paramedics when they make the calls in this community, and they see how they're living when they respond, and it's pretty sad. And they can't even help because they're losing more and more of our medics. Average paramedic makes $45,000 a year. So you can imagine, and then unfortunately, this is my conclusion here, I'm giving the pitch, but most of our first responders, you say, oh, look what a firefighter makes, 100,000, a police officer in West Van makes 106,000, but they work so long, their job is so stressful, on average, it's so high that they're on their second marriages and sometimes their third. So that 100,000 is split 2 ways to look after families, and then pensions, after tax dollars, they're making less than the young person working at 7-Eleven.
Yeah.
And and then you wonder when they pull you over, and I'm driving my fancier car, they're just a little disgruntled. We all live our lives, but you know, they can't even live here and rent here. And so I'm saying, hang in there, we're gonna try to create something, and I get counsel, one side of the mouth, the other. So I got a few counselors, I laid it on the line the last few weeks. I said, if you're listening to these advocacy groups that say it's my way and that's it, I said the third new group is coming in to not just be my crowd bigger than your crowd. We're gonna bring clear understanding about right design that support your community, everything that you say we need, well then deliver those needs. We're not taking anything away. So if you can cast the word about our men and women when you see a policeman or a paramedic as you're passing by, thanks for your service, we really appreciate it. You don't know when they go back to their unit station, it's like, hey, actually got thanked today, can you believe it? Because they don't get recognized enough. And the odd
Al,
time,
do you know the chief of West Van Police?
very well, Len Workey, and he offered to help run the Legions seniors housing if I
He's a
get
member
them.
of this club.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
And he
Okay.
also sits on the board, as a member of Rotary, he sits on the board of both Capilano Towers and Klahani.
He mentioned that to me,
Yeah.
and he knows because 51 of his unit attachment of 112, not counting non-commissioned, live outside the Vancouver area.
Yeah.
So he even said, hey, Al, I'm on your side. I'll run one of the other societies because he runs for the nonprofit above the Legion.
Yep.
He's there. But I can't have him run something because he's going to time out in a year and a bit. And so I deal closely with them. Up at Honour Ranch, he sent 2 people up to bring representation of the over 300 men and women that showed up. That's a long journey. You're committed when you go up there. So I owe it to him. Because they serve your community big time. You can feel good at night. You're firefighters, you're paramedic. So yeah, I'm passionate because I feel they deserve it. So yeah, Len's on board, but I need to get 15 in Esquimalt, 35 units like that. I call it the Peach Palace, and there's the Pink Palace because 15 Esquimalt is peach. So even the Wall family said,
Towers is right across the street, right?
that's right.
Yes.
And he said, I'll create, as fast as they leave, 35 doors right in there, fix them up, design them so we can temporarily accessible till they do the infill next door to build it. I could have teachers or first responders in there in like 2 weeks. Council, well, you know, if we're not going to study to death, how's the wind blowing with ADRA or Malcolm Nigel? It's like, we're talking lives.
Well, we support you.
So that's my feeling. I'm casting that message because I need our council to step up and look after you have your own police department and you have your own fire. Paramedics fall from the province, hence they make the least of, and they deserve it. So you can tell, obviously, I'm on a campaign, so thank you.
Yeah, very